Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. This is my crazy dog, Moose, that is trying to steal some kibble off the desk. But let me talk to you about where I want to start with this. I want to start with an observation that I've made across over 1,000 clients that I've worked with. The people with the most impressive background, the directors at organizations like Meta, the VPs at the major banks, the leaders who have built over $1,000 billion transformations are often the ones getting the worst career outcomes. And not because they aren't capable. I know that you're extraordinary. That's the problem that I want to talk about today. And there's a specific phenomenon that I see over and over, and I'm going to name it directly to you. Superior knowledge, inferior results. You know more than 90% of the people around you. You've delivered more than most of your peers, and somehow you're watching people less qualified than you get the roles, the titles, the compensations that you should have had 5 years ago. If that describes you, then I want you to tune in all the way till the end. And if it doesn't, then hey, this is not for you and keep scrolling. Here's the thing. Most senior professionals think the reason that they're stuck is one of three things. One, they need better skills. They go take another certification, another executive program, another credential. They add to what they already have, and it doesn't work. Two, you think that you need better market timing. So you tell yourself the job market is bad. Hiring is frozen. Recruiters aren't calling. So you wait, and waiting doesn't work, especially if you don't do anything about it. Third, maybe you're in that category where you feel that you need better luck. You think the people who got ahead had connections, they have had better luck than you. So this is where you resign yourself and you tell yourself that you just need to settle. It's not going to work. You should be happy with what you have. Here's what I'm going to tell you that's different. None of these are problems based on my experience of working with over 1,000 professionals, helping so many people through many career transitions at every level that you can imagine. Whether it's someone changing industries. I've had a client recently who got an offer. He transitioned from being a general manager in hospitality to a leadership role in property management. I've had a physician pivot from being a doctor to being a product leader. I've had a truck driver with no degree land an agile mentor role at a top gaming company in Europe. I've had people move to countries and not have to start over and instead level up. I've had a director move into a VP role. I've had a VP move into a CPO role. You get the idea. I've seen so many patterns. I've worked with all kinds of people in so many industries, every single continent, almost actually. Maybe there's one that I haven't worked, with. I will say, yeah, pretty much almost every continent. North America, Europe, Asia, Australia. Anyway, the problem is that you have a paradigm about yourself that doesn't match your actual potential. And the paradigm is driving your behavior more than your knowledge is. Now, let's talk about what a paradigm means. A paradigm is a mental program that controls habitual behavior. It's almost invisible because it's running in the background of every single decision that you make. So here's what it sounds like in senior professionals. I should be more realistic about the market right now. I don't want to overreach. I need to take what's available. Maybe I should apply for director roles. VP might be a stretch. Let me rebuild my resume first. Let me redo my LinkedIn profile first. Then I'm going to go after the bigger roles. Every one of these sentences sound reasonable, sound logical on paper. In fact, this is what you convince yourself with, right? Because you are a logical person. Every one of them is actually the paradigm protecting you from stepping into what you've already earned in terms of your career. Your knowledge says that you should be going after the VP role, but your paradigm says settle for director. Guess which one wins the next 50 decisions you make about your career? The paradigm wins every single time because the paradigm is emotional and your knowledge is intellectual, and emotions most of the time run the show. So I want you to think about where your career paradigm actually comes from. It wasn't built by you consciously. It was built by accumulation. Every time an old boss told you you're not quite ready for that level yet, that went into the paradigm. Every time a recruiter ghosted you, that went into the paradigm. Every time compensation conversations come up where you're told what the market rate is and you accepted it, that became part of the paradigm. Your brain started collecting more evidence against you that you're not ready, that you're not capable, that your situation is not going to change. And so you absorbed a definition of what you're worth from people who had no idea who you actually are. And here's the hard part. You led them, not because you were weak, because your paradigm was taking over. You were heads down, doing the work, delivering the outcomes. And while you're doing that, the people around you were telling you what to think about yourself. And you didn't stop to question it. Now, the paradigm runs you. Every application, every interview, every compensation conversation, every LinkedIn update, the paradigm decides what you ask for, how you show up, what you should expect. So let's talk about the 3 layers: thought, feeling, action. Here's how it actually plays out. Your thought is, I should go after VP role. Your feeling is anxiety because your paradigm doesn't believe you can. Even though you think that's where you should be at, your feeling makes you believe that you can't. So what happens to your action? Your action becomes applying for the director role instead of the VP role, or taking another course, or waiting. Thought, feeling, action. That's attitude, and that's what produces your results. So if the feeling in the middle isn't aligned with the thought at the top, the action at the bottom will betray you every single time. So what's going to happen is you're going to find 1,000 logical reasons to stay where you are, and you will call it being realistic. It's not realistic. It's the paradigm protecting itself. And sadly, I hear this on so many, conversations and people who hop on consultation calls with me, where it's almost like they're talking themselves out of what they actually want. It's crazy. Anyway, here's the pattern in action. I'll talk to you about 3 client patterns, and I'm going to give you 3 real examples from recent work. Obviously, I'm going to change the names. I'm not going to give the actual names, and I'm not going to give any identifying information. So, client pattern number 1, senior product leader, had run 35 engineers, built products from zero, delivered high impact decisions for years. By every objective measure, that person is operating at a director level, but she didn't believe that she was qualified for it, and she kept applying for senior individual contributor roles. So what happened? Of course, the market read her and perceived her at exactly that paradigm that she kept telling herself, because she was presenting herself that way. Competent, but not leadership material. So once we built how she described her own work, the same work, but using different language, she landed a director level role, reporting to the CEO with a $70,000 increase. Nothing changed about what she'd done. What changed was the paradigm about how she was perceived and what it meant. Okay. Now, when I work with clients and we shift their paradigm, obviously, if I just sit there and say, you can do it, they're not going to believe me. Right. So we have to go through a lot of exercises for them to start believing what they're capable of and really just breaking that paradigm. So, one of the things that I do with my clients is that we go through a career archetype assessment where they start understanding themselves. We go through patterns from their life, from their career, in order to help them see it. So, that's the first thing that we do. Now, the second thing that we do that AI is not going to help you do is they're embedded in a very supportive community with like minded people. And I do believe that when you surround yourself with people who are ambitious like you, everything changes. See, the thing is, I will say one of the biggest reasons people stay where they are is because they're influenced by peers who are Debbie Downers. That's the best way I can put it. Who will put all this negativity in their head about what's not possible and how they should be realistic. I want you to think about the top, leaders on this planet, whether athletes, artists, um, even like leaders at organizations, let's say at Meta, founders, who made millions of dollars. I'm sure that there were people in their circle who kept telling them, naysayers, who kept telling them, be realistic, you're being unreasonable, blah, 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 right? That is definitely something that they have most likely faced. But do you think that they listen to those people? No. Otherwise, they wouldn't be where they want to be. There's always going to be naysayers. And, if you believe in yourself, I will say the sky is the limit. Now, let's talk about part two. I had a client who didn't think, well, she was already a director, but she was also trying to lower her expectation. The thing is, this person managed more than 50 people. She's driven results. She's delivered under pressure. She was already operating at the VP level in everything but the title. And she kept telling herself the VP role was aspirational. She hired a resume company to try to fix it. And the resume was not the problem. Her belief was. Because once we rewired that, what happened was she actually landed the VP role and she's still there a year and a half later. Excuse me. I kind of find it funny when people come on calls with me and tell me, oh, I asked them, so, what do you want? Like if I gave you a magic wand and you could achieve anything that you want, what would that be? Sometimes they hold back, and then after a lot of prying, they share with me their aspirational goal. And then I ask them, well, what do you think is getting in the way? And the first thing that almost every single person tells me, oh, it's my resume. And the funny thing is, they also tell me that they've tried fiddling around with AI to help them fix their resume, and they're still not getting the result. And they have friends, at companies like McKinsey or Meta or whatever, top-notch company out there who could help them with their resume, but they're still not getting the result. And logically, when you think about it, so you're telling me you have all of the resources to basically write the most impressive resume on the planet. Yet you're also telling me that the resume is the problem. How does that even add up, right? You would think that the conclusion that they would arrive to is the issue is not the resume. The resume is simply a symptom of a bigger problem, because people can't read your mind, and people are not going to understand who you are when you have a belief that you're not the person that you want to be, right? And so the fix is not creating a resume based on who you believe you are. The fix is fixing the root cause, which is rewiring who you believe you are in order to land the role that you want. And believe me, when we fix that, everything else fixes itself. Okay, so let's talk about pattern 3. A founder positioning himself for the wrong clients. Yes, I have not only worked with, people who are senior professionals, directors, VPs. I've also worked with founders and C-level professionals. And with this particular founder, he was positioning himself for the wrong clients. He was doing exceptional work, getting paid by clients who weren't his actual target market. And his positioning was anchored to the version of his expertise from 5 years ago, not today. His positioning was just not doing him justice, and it's not aligned to the most valuable version of himself. He kept making incremental adjustments to his marketing. He hired a marketing agency. It wasn't working. The paradigm had him still performing the old version of himself and labeling himself as the old version of himself. And once we shifted that, his firm started moving towards the exact type of clients that he wants and the type of work that brings him joy. So here's the pattern across all 3. The paradigm was running them. Once they could see it, that's when they stopped it. So how do we disrupt this mental block, this paradigm that you've been running that's keeping you from achieving the goal that you want to achieve? I'm going to tell you what doesn't break it first, and then I'm going to tell you what breaks it. So what keeps you in the paradigm? What doesn't break this paradigm? More information is not going to change anything. Another certification is not going to change anything. Another resume revision is not going to be changing. Affirmations, reading more career advice on LinkedIn, going to ChatGPT and asking it, waiting for the right moment, applying for more jobs. All of these sit in the conscious mind. The thing is, the paradigm is in the emotional mind, and you can't outthink a paradigm. You have to restructure it. So let's talk about what breaks it. One, it all starts with seeing it clearly. Oh my goodness. I had a client who came to me in January, and he said to me that he worked with another career coach. He's tried, to shift out of his situation. He's working in a director level role, but he knows that he could be doing more. His company's not compensating him, even though he's a top performer at his organization. And, the more we talked and the more we started working together, he started opening up and telling me things like, oh my God, this work is very uncomfortable. And I asked him, why is it uncomfortable? He said, because this is the first time that someone ever asks me questions at that level of depth that really, really makes me think about what I've delivered and what I've done. And I've taken what I've done for granted for so long. It's making me feel uncomfortable talking about it this way, because it's helping me realize how much I've brought to the table and I've dismissed it. Then the second time we talked was we were looking at his aspirational role, the ideal role that he wants to land. And when we rebuilt his positioning, including his resume, he was looking at it and he was looking at job postings. And again, he was feeling uncomfortable. So I asked him, what's making you feel uncomfortable? And he said, well, I don't think I've done any of these things that they're asking for in the job posting. And then the more we dug into what he's done, the more he had a light bulb moment of the magnitude of what he's delivered. And he realized that actually he's done a lot more than what that job posting was asking for, because he came from an industry that is quite political and required Jedi skills in terms of growing a business. And the role was, like a technology environment that didn't need so much, savvy to navigate. And so all of a sudden, he finally sees himself clearly. His initial argument was, I've never really been a people manager officially, even though I have a director title. I haven't managed people. And when I asked him questions, we uncovered that he's actually developed a framework, an onboarding framework, so that newcomers joining the company would hit the ground running. It turns out that because he was a top performer, he has mentored so many people. And so he just wasn't seeing himself clearly. And once he saw it, everything changed. And so once you can see the paradigm, once you realize that you've been undervaluing yourself, that you've been telling yourself all these things about who you are, that is when you can decide whether you want to keep running it or you want to disrupt it. But before you actually see it clearly, nothing changes. You keep applying to those low-level jobs and you keep telling ChatGPT that you did all of these things, which are below what you've actually done, because the words that are coming out of your mouth are not exactly describing what you've done correctly. And so garbage in, garbage out. This is why I tell people, this is why no matter how many resume writers that you hire, no matter how many conversations you have with Claude, it's not going to describe your experience accurately because you're telling it the wrong things. So that's the first step that we disrupt, is how you actually see yourself. The second thing that we do is naming your actual magnitude, what you bring to the table, naming it correctly, not aspirationally, accurately. Who have you actually been at these organizations? What have you actually delivered? What does the honest version of your track record say about what you're capable of? Most senior leaders are worse at perceiving their own career than anyone else in the room. Then the third one is rebuilding the narrative from the accurate version. So once I sit down with my clients and help them see who they actually are and who they have been, that's when we can tell the right story. That's when we can rebuild the right resume, the right LinkedIn profile, and help you talk about yourself in interviews differently. So here's how you'll be able to know if you have not been talking about yourself correctly. One of the signs is when you have a conversation with a recruiter and they are recommending you for a role with a lower salary than you want, or matching you with a role that is more junior. That's how you know. That's how you know there's a disconnect. Or you go into basically an interview, you have a conversation with a recruiter, you have a conversation with the hiring manager, and then they tell you that we went with another candidate or they ghost you. That's how you know that the narrative that you've been sharing is not the accurate version. The fourth step to break this: repetition of the new pattern. This is a little woo-woo, but it is honestly 100% true. And actually, what I want to do right now is I want to read to you something that one of my clients who just landed an offer shared with me. This is what he said. After a 2-hour interview with the association board, I received a job offer this morning for a general manager role at Company X. I can't express how excited I am for this new role and the opportunity to transfer my hospitality leadership skills into property management. I wanted to share my sincere appreciation with the community and Nada for being supportive throughout this journey. When I started this program, I didn't know my career direction. I struggled with imposter syndrome and didn't have a clear path forward. And I have reached a pivotal moment in my career. Thank you, Nada, for helping me overcome the mental roadblocks. So he basically is saying that he had to overcome the mental paradigm in his head. And the challenge that we had to overcome is to get him to think more strategically and narrate his story more clearly and to believe in his own experience. And that pretty much sums up the diagnosis of almost every single person that I have spoken to in the last 6 years. Over 3,000 conversations on consultation calls. That is literally the diagnosis of the problem that every single person needs to overcome. The last thing he says, through repetitive practice, I was able to build stronger stories and in turn become more confident. And so the thing that a lot of people don't understand is, yes, you can absolutely figure out your career direction and you can see yourself more clearly and you can build the right narrative. But the thing is, when you're going through a career transition, it's kind of like you are trying to break away from the person that you have been showing up as in your current role. And you need to kind of shift into this new person. It's almost like acting in some way, except that we're not pretending that you can do this role. The way that you speak, the way that you show up needs to be different. And there's a little bit of a mental gymnastics that needs to happen. And in order for that to materialize, for you to be able to speak authentically in interviews as that new person, it requires repetition. The best way I can explain this to you is I don't know if you've seen these movies where, this person comes from a very, let's say a middle class, environment. And now they have to basically get used to going to these fancy dinners with wealthy, people. And so you have to dress the part, you have to like hold your utensils a certain way, you have to speak a certain way to be able to have conversations with these different types of people. And so, you have to go through all of this like teaching, like you see in the movie how this person, ends up getting a coach who coaches them through that, how to like dress and style themselves a certain way. And it requires repetition for them to feel at ease, you know? And this is the same thing. If you're moving from director to VP level, you need to speak a certain way, you need to show up a certain way, your confidence needs to be a certain way. And it's not going to be like an overnight switch. It's going to need a lot of repetition. And this is why I have a community to simulate that type of environment so that it doesn't feel like you are sort of pretending to be someone else, but it becomes muscle memory. Okay, so before I close out, I want to leave you with 3 questions that you can sit with. 1, when you look at your current role, is it a match for who you actually are? Or is it a match for who the paradigm has told you to be? 2, if you removed every external voice telling you what you're worth, every manager, every recruiter, every market rate conversation, what role would you believe you belong in? Truthfully, if you took out all the logistics that are in the way, what role do you believe you deserve? 3, what's the cost of staying in the current paradigm for another 12 months? In terms of compensation, in terms of the impact that you want to create, in terms of your energy, and the years that you're never going to get back. These aren't rhetorical questions. I want you to actually write them down. You can put them in the chat as you're listening, or you can, write them down on a piece of paper and answer them. Because answering these questions is going to tell you what you already know, but you haven't said out loud. Okay, so the types of people that I enjoy working with, they're not broken. Okay, I don't work with broken people. Every single person that I work with is brilliant. That's what makes this work so effective. Okay, but what's painful about this is that a lot of my amazing clients, they have been working at the level that aligns with the role that they want to land, but they haven't been recognized for it. And they've been performing brilliantly inside a paradigm that's costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars in years of their career. Here's the thing, you're so smart that you're able to build this compelling argument to convince yourself that where you are is fine. I have people who make so many excuses about why they don't want to make a move. Oh, I'm scared of like, I'm going to end up, like, I don't know if I have time, to actually get coaching to overcome this when they're already spending, so many hours searching for jobs the incorrect way. I get it, because once you get the coaching, all of this becomes real. All of this becomes something that you can't escape and you have to commit to. So it really is up to you in terms of who you want to be and how you want to live the rest of your life and what kind of role model you want to be for your kids and your community. So if that's you and you're ready to actually face your paradigm and rebuild it, not in 6 months, but now and in a real structured process, then you're welcome to book a call with me. Now, remember, when you book the call with me, I'm not here to convince you to be ready and do something about your career. I'm here to help, okay? So the decision needs to come from you in terms of wanting to move forward. And these calls with me are not coaching calls. These calls are fit calls in terms of determining whether we can work together or not. So if you want to book a call with me to see if I can help, feel free to do so. I don't work with 100 people at a time because I'm one person. And this type of work requires a lot of depth and a lot of conversation. So if that is something that you want to do, then of course, book a call with me. Now, how do you book a call? Great question. LinkedIn has not made it super easy to see my links, but I'll show you quickly how to do that. So number one, if you go into my LinkedIn profile, let's see here. Very simple. There's a button that says book an appointment. You click on that button. It takes you to this page. And then you can click on book your career diagnosis. It'll only take 2 minutes to answer these questions because I want to understand your current situation in order to help you, right? Okay, so that is it. If you found this useful, I would really appreciate it if you give this a like. A, it helps with the algorithm. B, someone out there would benefit from this, right? And wouldn't it be amazing for us to help more people? Wouldn't it be amazing for you to be the reason someone who's been down on themselves can change their life, right? So it only takes 5 seconds, even less than that, to click on the like button. And if you absolutely love this and you got an aha moment, then I encourage you to repost this so that your connections see it. Other than that, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. Let me see some of these questions that I missed here. That's a very big question. What do you lose with inertia? It's one I suspect many of us don't think about often. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday. My little dog Moose says hello to you all. He's been behaving himself throughout this entire stream. And if you're too shy to, comment, feel free to DM me as well. Okay. Happy Sunday. Talk to you soon. Bye.